Alrighty, today we have the SMSL SU-8. This right here is it's a DAC, right? It's a higher end DAC, but at a very, very reasonable price, in my opinion. So, check it out. It's running the ESS. It's got Sabre DAC, DSD, runs PCM at 32 bits, 768 kilohertz. This thing's got some features. This isn't your standard like, oh, well, entry-level DAC, which is better than motherboard or better than your phone. No, no, no. This thing has options. This thing has settings and extra little juicy stuff, juicy things that will definitely interest you in taking a look at this, right? So this is the box itself. You can see the unit there. It has a tiny LED light-up screen. It's not exactly a 4K screen, but you don't need that on this unit, just where it's from, Shenzhen. I hope I said that correctly, but I usually don't. So you open up the thing. Padding. Very nice padding. Thank you very much for that. And it comes with the charger, the remote, its own USB Type B to A cable, which I think is fantastic. It's super nice. And I would have used it if I didn't already have my own. So I just kept it here in the box and never opened it up. But I'm sure it functions perfectly fine. Now here is the unit itself, and I just realized that I put it in reverse. You see those notches right there? Oops. Anyway, it comes in that little bag right there, but I chose not to put it in because removing the DAC from a bag like that, one-handed, was just going to be a massive pain. But here is the unit itself. You can see it says, thank you, high-res audio. There's a screen, SMSL SU-8. To the right, here's the serial number, so I'm just not going to show that off. And to the rear, it's got the DC in, well, AC in. It's got optical, USB Type B, coax, and it's got your outputs for balanced and RCA, or both, whatever you want to do. Down here, as you can see, it has a toggle, so you can switch between whatever you're running it at, 115 or I forget the other, but I believe it was 220 or 240, essentially compatibility for the other guys that don't get to run it at this voltage. So, great, it's a DAC. It looks nice, it looks shiny, it's built like a tank. Great. So why would I get this over anything else? Well, here's why. And I am going to resort to looking at a list because it's got a bunch of features and I just don't feel like going over each and every little thing off the top of my head. Plus, I'm probably going to get something wrong if I do that anyway. So let's check it out. So for starters, here's the remote itself. This is the remote that controls the DAC, and it requires two AAA batteries. So you just pop them in right there, and you're good to go. Immediately, you're going to notice that it's not going to work, and the reason for that is because you got to press the C button first, and then do whatever function you want to do. Once you're done, you can press either A or B to turn off the remote itself. I think that's pretty cool. That way, the battery doesn't waste. And my theory as to why they did that is because this is an infrared remote. Now, I could be mistaken if other TVs use that kind of, type of technology for their own TVs or any other receivers. But well, anyway, my theory is just that, to save battery. So fantastic. I think that's a great idea. You're rarely going to need the remote anyway. So just press C, do what you want, then press A or B, and you're good, So you got your power button, you got the mute button, you've got up and down is the volume buttons, left and right is to select a different function. The circle button in the menu, in the middle, is the menu. The menu takes you through 5 different stages, which are your inputs, your PCM filters, the sound color, which is basically sound signature. You can, it's a mini EQ per se, a dimmer, and display mode. And I'll explain what each one of them does. following this. So the PCM filters, you have 7 different options. You have fast linear, which is the stock setting that comes on the amp. You have slow linear. You have fast minimum, slow minimum, fast hybrid, apodizing, and brick wall. So I wrote a few notes on what I felt with each of the filters. As far as the slow linear and slow minimum felt, I could actually kind of feel the sound kind of being a little slow, if that makes any sense. It probably sounds ridiculous, but maybe it's just my imagination, but it just kind of felt like, compared to what I've been hearing thus far and compared to what I've been hearing from the other filters, the sound genuinely feels like it's slower. Like it takes a little while to play. I don't know. Not that there's any input latency or anything like that. I doubt that's the thing. But it's just really strange. It was very strange. With apodizing, I felt like it cuts the sub bass a little, and it improves clarity ever so slightly. So you have a pro and you have a con. I just chose not to go for it. But at times, apodizing kind of felt like it was the better option, just because maybe a song didn't need that sub bass. Maybe it needed that clarity. Who's to say, you know? Brick wall is really true to its name. And let me explain why. Up to now, I guess I didn't realize that when you listen to some music, it kind of has like this, I guess, not just like 3D effect, like where the positioning is at, but this especially makes you realize that your sound is in 3D, you know, not just to the left, to the right, up and down, also forward and back, 3 planes of existence, where brick wall just kind of feels like it removes, like it kind of sandwiches the sound together in a sense. I don't know, like it flattens out the soundstage somehow, or I don't know. Everything still sounds where it's supposed to be, but just imagine your soundstage is a cube. Now it's sort of a compressed rectangle, as far as like from front to back is concerned. It was really strange. I'm not exactly sure why you would need that, but I mean, if you want it, it's there. And well, everybody's ears are different. Maybe you hear something a little different than I do. Maybe you hear, I don't know, a wider soundstage. What are the odds? Probably, right? So, sound signature. It comes with the standard, which is stock. It comes with rich 1, 2, and 3, crystal 1, 2, and 3, tube 1, 2, and 3, and original. Rich, I felt kind of made a slight V shape to the sound, kind of hyped up the sound signature. And by the way, as far as the sound color goes, sound signatures, the effects that this has on the sound is so slight, but somewhat noticeable, especially if you're going back and forth between the settings. So this I consider to be a good thing, because it means that your sound isn't really getting distorted whatsoever. You don't have to worry about distortion, because the effects that the DAC is providing are so minimal, you don't have to worry about it. And on top of that, because it's a minimal change, you can just go ahead, do this once, just select which one's your favorite, and you never have to worry about it again, because, you know, you selected your setting. It's not too different. It is what it is, but it leans towards something that you might prefer. Crystal 1, 2, and 3. Honestly, I couldn't really notice any different. If I had to really point something out, and this one I could mostly amount to being my imagination. Probably a reduction in bass, probably leaner bass. Not exactly a cutoff in the sub bass, but yeah, just leaner bass. Like the sound was a little lean, I guess. But frankly, just really didn't notice a big difference whatsoever. Tube sound 1, 2, and 3. That one was one of the larger differences. Here, it was less hype. The sound kind of became lush and relaxed, which I consider, me personally, that's not really my taste. if anything, ever so slightly lush and relaxed. So for me, tube is kind of a, well, might be a nice change of pace, but for the most part, I wouldn't go for it. And then original, if anything, I'd say there was a slight increase in treble that raises clarity. Again, this one wasn't a big difference, but the largest difference I could notice when jumping back and forth between standard and original was in the song The Game of Love by Santana, or San Viento, whatever you want to call him, like the Mexican wind. In that song, they have the, what do you call that instrument? The, the hand drum, I guess, with some like small cymbals around it. I honestly, God, I'm going to hate myself for forgetting this, but whatever. That instrument, you have it on your hand and then you clap it with your other hand and it makes like a ringing kind of sound because of the clanging of the steel circles or whatever. I'm gonna hate myself because I'm gonna go on the internet and I'm gonna check out what the name is and I'm gonna say, amazing, I am a moron. So yeah, that instrument popped a little more in original. It just it seemed like the soundstage gave it a little bit of an extra space to breathe and to resonate on its own, completely separate from the music. So I guess you can play around with that. I personally, later I'll probably go back and forth between standard and original, just because I'm not exactly sure which I preferred out of those two. But just as an FYI, the treble increase in original ever so slightly, and I wouldn't say treble increase like it now feels a little more peaky or like it hurts. I'm just saying that it just makes instruments pop a little more. The next setting is the dimmer. That is just basically to set the brightness of the screen itself. How bright is it? And there are 5 settings. There's auto brightness, which makes the receiver there, the IR receiver, recognize or scan how much light there is in the environment, and then it adjusts the brightness according to that. And there's also brightnesses 1, 2, 3, and 4. The stock setting is brightness 1, and I had it that way for months and months until I finally put batteries in the remote and decided to mess around with it. And it was perfectly fine at 1. I had no complaints with it. But after realizing that I could make it a lot brighter, I did. My preference was 3. I think brightness 3 is much brighter than brightness 1, but there's no... The leak of light, light leak is minimal. When you get to brightness 4 is much brighter, but the light leak is terrible. I mean, well, to me anyway, it made the unit look bad. So I think brightness 3 is like a good balance between ever so slight leakage. I'm talking ever so slight, but brightness and, makes the unit look good. And you could check it out. But even at the lowest brightness, you would have really no complaints in seeing what the unit is trying to say. And now display mode. Here on the screen, you can have one of 3 things being displayed as standard. Stock is sampling rate, and that's what I've had it as, just because I think that's the most important thing to know of where it's at. For example, there's also inputs and volume. But volume... unless you're going to use this on a home theater setup, then you're really not going to be adjusting the volume at all. You're going to be adjusting it from your PC or your amp or some other part of your chain. So I don't think volume really matters to be displayed here. And as far as input goes, if you don't know what input it is, maybe you're not using it correctly. And on top of that, you can just change the input on the remote because that's most likely the issue. But if you just happen to not remember what input you're going to leave it on, or you happen to switch between inputs very often and you don't feel like checking any other way, then hey, just leave the input at, place it as the standard display mode and you'll be perfectly fine. So like I said already, the build is excellent. It's sturdy. I did say the volume comes at 31 stock, which really killed me. So me, the OCD creature that I am, I just had to go in and switch it to 32. 31 and 32 are perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with them, perfectly loud. The loudest it goes to is 38, and the quietest is 0, by the way. So you're getting pretty up there, and I don't know, I didn't feel like setting it all the way to the max. I felt 32 was more than enough for me without being too loud or too quiet. There's no way to change which output is going to come out of the DAC. Like it's just going to come out with balanced and unbalanced at the same time. So it's up to you to control the input from the next item in the chain. So for example, if you had a AAA 789, then this thing will be outputting both signals to, well, let's say the AAA 789. And then on the 789, there's an input button that lets you select between balanced and unbalanced. So doing that is how you would choose between the two. To me, it sounds amazing and clear. I mean, this thing is frankly my endgame DAC right there. There's no need to spend on anything else unless I'm proven wrong. But this is honestly just much better than pretty much any other DAC I've heard. But to be fair, I haven't heard an extremely large amount of DACs either. I've heard the Modi 2 Uber, which I am now told has a lot of interference and there's a lot of jitter and stuff like that. So forget that. I've heard the Jotunheim, the balanced version of the Jotunheim, that DAC. I have heard a Bifrost from Shit, and that's about it. Yeah, and then the SMSL, obviously. So out of all those, this is definitely the clearest and just, I guess, uncolored of them all, I think. For $200, this is an absolute steal. I recommend it to anyone and everyone that needs one. Last of all, okay, this button right here, this is the only button on the unit. It is a power button and to toggle inputs. So that's what I've been using for the past probably 5-6 months, and I've had no issues with it. Well, anyway, that is the end of the review. Bottom line, the DAC to get, especially if you plan on running balanced. But I mean, I've been running unbalanced all this time, and even then, it's an awesome unit at $200. And I mean, come on, control everything from your couch on a home theater PC, so you can play from your speakers and play awesome. I mean, why get anything else? Here it is, right there. SMSL SU-8 will be great. I can't hate. Bye.